His book, The Political Brain, The Role of Emotion in Deciding the Fate of the Nation, explores how politicians can capture the hearts and minds of voters through examples of what candidates have said or could have said in debate speeches and ads. He lives in Atlanta. Okay, so just to sort of set the mood and to get you thinking, I want you to be thinking, first of all, I'm not going to tell you what this is that I'm about to play, although I think 90% of you will guess it instantly. I will reveal at the end. Think about two questions. First, is what you're about to hear propaganda, or is it reality-based politics, or is it both, or is it neither? And second of all, the technique of using words to manipulate the public through media of mass communications, who invented it and when, and what are the points when the game got to a higher level? So this is to sort of set a baseline for that discussion, and I hope this button works.
My friends, since my annual message to the Congress on January 4th last, I have not addressed the general public over the air. In the many weeks since that time, the Congress has devoted itself to the arduous task of formulating legislation necessary to the country's welfare. It has made and is making distinct progress. The job of creating a program for the nation's welfare is in some respects like the building of a ship. At different points on the coast where I often visit, they build great seagoing ships. And when one of these ships is under construction and the steel frames have been set in the keel, it is difficult for a person who does not know ships to tell how it will finally look when it is sailing the high seas. It may seem confused to some, but out of the multitude of detailed parts that go into the making of the structure, the creation of a useful instrument for man ultimately comes. It is that way with the making of a national policy. The objective of the nation has greatly changed in 3 years. Before that time, individual self-interest and group selfishness were paramount in public thinking. The general good was at a discount. 3 years of hard thinking have changed the picture. More and more people, because of clearer thinking and a better understanding, are considering the whole rather than a mere part, a part relating to one section, or to one crop, or to one industry, or to one individual private occupation. That is a tremendous gain for the principles of democracy, for the overwhelming majority of people in this country know how to sift the wheat from the chaff in what they hear and in what they read. We have, in the darkest moments of our national trials, retained our faith in our own ability to master our own destiny. Fear is vanishing. Confidence is growing on every side. Renewed faith in the vast possibilities of human beings to improve their material and spiritual status through the instrumentality of the democratic form of government. That faith is receiving its just reward. For that, we can be thankful to the God who watches over America.
So, he's good, huh? That is from Franklin D. Roosevelt's fireside chat over the radio in 1935, where he essentially unveiled what became the Social Security system. So one might say, just to be provocative, here's a politician who masters a new medium of mass communications, the radio, allows him to reach past anybody else directly to the American people. He's so power hungry that he runs for president 4 times, which nobody's ever done, and wins all 4 times. He expands the power of the state tremendously. This is the single biggest government program, domestic program, has become that. He never says that. He instead compares it to a great seagoing vessel and says God himself has blessed the idea. Are we horrified, or do we wish that we could have more politicians like this? Just food for thought, and over to you, George.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Let me begin with the obligatory Orwell slide. Okay, that's 1984. This is 2007. That's from an army base in the South. Obedience is freedom. This is from someone running for president. You know, Rudy Giuliani. Freedom is about authority. Now, the point that Nick was making is a powerful one. Framing and use of metaphor is necessary to say what you believe. And the reason for that is a very simple one, though it's often missed because most people don't know very much about what's been discovered in cognitive science and in neuroscience in the last 30 years. The basic finding is this. Surprise, you think with your brain, maybe except for certain politicians who use other parts of their anatomy, but even they think with their brains, and most thought is unconscious below the level of consciousness, about 98%. And that is a remarkable, important fact. Now, Orwell, in trying to deal with issues of doublethink and newspeak and so on, came out with the essay we're talking about today, Politics in the English Language. And what he was saying there was something that isn't true, I'm sad to say. That is, he said that the problem was bad habits of foolish thought, inaccurate, slovenly, dull, pretentious, ungraceful, meaningless language that he called the decay of language. He said this led to political propaganda and its effects. And to cure it, you just had to let the meaning choose the word. And, you know, he never read the modern propagandists who write so very well, the David Brookses and Peggy Noonans of the world. And this view is actually a naive and dangerous view because it comes from the Enlightenment. And it's a fallacy. The Enlightenment was wonderful for its politics. This country was founded on the basis of Enlightenment ideas about freedom, about equality, about balance of powers, and so on. But the Enlightenment had a false view of reason. And it's still there, and it's still out there, often in the media, often in the Democratic Party, and in all sorts of folks. Many distinguished newspapers have the idea that reason is conscious, that it's universal, that it's logical, that it's literal, it fits the world, that it's unemotional, that emotion gets in the way of reason, that it's disembodied, and that it's interest-based, that reason is there to serve your interests. And one horrible thing about this is you see it in the Democratic Party a great deal. That is, if you believe this, you'll think all you need to do is tell people the facts and the figures, and then they'll reason to the right conclusion, right? Wrong. I mean, we've seen this certainly in the last 2 elections, but we see it all the time. And the reason is that the cognitive and brain sciences have shown that this view of reason is just false in a very deep way, and not just false in a simple way. It's false in every single detail. Every detail. So, what is reason? First, 98% unconscious. That is, most of the thought and the reasoning you do is not accessible to your consciousness. And I don't just mean things that you hear that you are not conscious of. I mean most of the ideas that you have, the concepts that you have, are unconscious. You don't know your own system of concepts, right? Very important. I don't know mine. We're studying it, trying to figure it out. We've made a lot of progress in it, but it's still hard to figure it out. Understanding what your system of concepts in is hard. Secondly, reason requires emotion, and emotion is not always conscious. One of the things you'll hear from Drew Weston is emotion can be unconscious. This has really been studied dramatically, most dramatically, by Antonio Damasio, the country's perhaps leading neuroscientist, in a book called Descartes' Error.